I worked at a company where overtime often stretched late into the night, so I frequently took the last train home. The station out in the countryside was almost deserted by the time rolled in. When I first started at that company, I spent a lot of time waiting alone on that empty platform for the last train. Then, one night, just as usual, I was standing on the platform waiting for the last train when suddenly, I felt a sharp push from behind. I stumbled but didn't fall onto the tracks by mere inches. Shocked, I whirled around, but nobody was there. Nothing at all. But then, I heard a voice. It was bright and cheerful. A man's voice. Laughing lightly, haha. Sorry about that. At the time, I was terrified, just wanting the train to come quickly and save me. But over the next months, that voice would reappear regularly every 2 or 3 months like clockwork. Once, it happened while I was coming down the stairs, and I got a sudden shove. Another time, right as the train doors were about to close, I felt a hand grab mine. Each time, I heard that same sunny male voice laughing. Sorry. Yet when I looked to see who was speaking, there was no one there. Gradually, I settled into my work and got used to the routine. One night, after drinking with a senior colleague, I was waiting for the last train again when I was shoved hard from behind. This time, I was a little drunk and bolder. I shouted back angrily, "Enough already." The voice answered again, laughing, haha. Sorry. Next time I definitely will kill you. From that day on, I gave up the train. I started biking and taking the bus to work instead. It was inconvenient, but honestly, I'm not looking to die. That's my story. No obvious paranormal events really happened, yet something felt off. I used to frequent a nationwide chain ramen shop. Usually, I'd drive to work and sometimes eat alone there. As a solo customer, the staff always seated me in the same spot. One day, as usual, I sat down and ordered a fried rice set. While waiting, I idly pulled out my phone and started searching random terms to pass the time. Suddenly, the screen felt unusual. Bold letters appeared: help available, mental health hotline now open for consultation. It hit me, then had I unknowingly typed something about suicide. I remember recent celebrity suicides making the news, and those sites often linked to mental health resources. Maybe it accidentally clicked something related. I thought if this info helps someone reconsider, that's a good thing. But at that moment, a chilling realization came over me. Wait, wasn't I at this exact seat last week when I really did search the word suicide? I scanned around the shop, trying to find any posters or signs related to suicide or mental health. Nothing. I hadn't been suicidal or going through any despair lately, but the memory of that search was like just recalling a fact. It felt vivid, eerie, and deeply unsettling. The more I thought, the more I suspected it was just the seat. Maybe just being in that shop was dangerous. I stood up quickly, apologized to the staff, and left in a hurry. The next day, I shared this experience on social media. Soon, I got lots of private messages and comments warning me, "You got pulled in, didn't you? Be careful. Never go back to that place. Don't search strange words there." Their warnings made me uneasy, but I mostly brushed it off. I figured people online were just too sensitive. A few days later, the whole thing was out of my mind. Then one day, after work, stuck in traffic and video chatting with my girlfriend, we talked about dinner plans. Suddenly, she got serious and said, "You're not going back to that ramen shop, right? Promise you won't go again." I laughed it off casually, saying, "No way, don't worry." But just then, I suddenly caught sight of the ramen shop sign not far ahead. It hit me like a punch to the chest. Without hesitation, I sharply turned the steering wheel left and veered off that road. My girlfriend saw the background through the video call and noticed what I was doing. Her voice relaxed a little. "You can go to a nearby place instead. But don't get close to the ramen shop," trying to sound casual. I replied, "I was just passing by earlier. No big deal." But inside, a strange unease was already crawling up my spine. Later, when I arrived at my destination and was about to end the call, my girlfriend suddenly screamed, "Wait, aren't you at that ramen shop? I can see the sign behind you clearly." At that moment, my mind went completely blank. Somehow, without meaning to, I had ended up there again. Without thinking, I started the engine and hurriedly drove away from that place. Even now, I can't say for sure if some strange force was at work there, drawing people in. If my girlfriend hadn't warned me, would I have found myself sitting in that familiar seat again, searching for things like how to commit suicide online? And if it keep going like that, what would happen next? I really don't want to imagine it. Not long ago, my father remarried. I suddenly had a new stepmother. But she was just like a villain from a TV drama, so hateful and cruel. She always wore a sweet smile in front of my father. But to me, it was nothing but insults and harsh words. That day, my father went on a trip with that woman. So I decided to invite some friends over to stay the night. The three of us loved horror stories, so we spent the evening browsing various spooky websites on the computer. But normal ghost stories didn't thrill us anymore. We started looking at curses, dangerous stuff, methods for cursing people we hated, even suicide-themed sites. Then, we found one curse that supposedly made someone you disliked suffer misfortune. The instructions were simple: at midnight, pour 10 yen coins into a plastic bottle, add a strand of the hated person's hair, say their name silently in your mind, then say "go die" twice aloud, seal the bottle and bury it in a shrine. The curse would supposedly activate on its own, and the victim would sink into endless misfortune. It sounded like something a kid dreamed up. Other curses needed cat's blood or dead rats, things we couldn't get. So we decided to try this one first. We grabbed a plastic bottle and pulled hair from that woman's pillow. My friend looked worried. What if the curse actually works? But honestly, I wanted that woman dead so badly that I didn't hesitate. The room was brightly lit, but I felt something strange in the air, as if the space itself was tense. I put the 10 yen coin and her hair inside the bottle. Silently, I prayed, whatever gods are out there, please kill that woman. Then I snapped the cap shut, because there was a shrine right behind my house. We ran there and buried the bottle quickly. Whether or not the curse worked, I thought she deserved whatever came next. Then we went home. About a week later, that woman fell down the stairs and sprained her ankle. 3 days later, she fell from a height and broke her nose. I thought the curse really did work. I told my friend, "The curse is working, see." But my friend quietly said, "Did you notice? The 10 yen coin didn't actually fit inside the bottle." I thought he was joking. But when I tried again, the coin wouldn't fit at all. He had been too scared to tell me earlier. That night, the coin somehow slipped in smoothly. I had a bad feeling. Now, in planning to dig up the bottle from the shrine and see what's inside. One summer day, my boyfriend and I went on a seaside vacation. Along with us were his friend Kitada and Kit Ad as girlfriend. My boyfriend rode his motorcycle. Kitada had a car, so the three of us piled into Kit Ada's car. The four of us enjoyed ourselves thoroughly at the beach. Only when the sky began to dark and did we decide to head home. On our way to get the parked vehicles, Kitada suddenly challenged my boyfriend, "Let's race, see who gets home first." Since we all lived in the same apartment building, it was a race to the exact same place. My boyfriend had agreed to Kit Ad as hurried invitation without much thought. So, on the way home, They began racing each other as fast as they could. In the end, we arrived first. Kitoda and his girlfriend were thrilled to have won the race, but I felt uneasy. My boyfriend was an expert on his motorcycle, so he should have arrived first. Yet that night, he never came back. The next morning, when I woke up, I heard news that shattered my world. Kitoda and his girlfriend appeared at my door, their faces shadowed with grief and unease. Kitoda spoke hesitantly. "This morning, the police contacted me. Your boyfriend, Yuan. He crashed while turning a corner, hit the guardrail, and died on the spot." I couldn't believe it. My body gave out. I collapsed to the floor, overwhelmed by sorrow. But then Kitoda and his girlfriend shared something even more chilling. Kitoda's girlfriend was the first to speak again. "We said the police came this morning, but after that, someone knocked on our door. We didn't know who it was, so we asked, 'Who's there?' The voice said he said it was Yuan. We were terrified. At first, I couldn't understand what he was saying. I just stared at them." Kitoda picked up the story. "We thought it was a prank. We were about to shout at whoever it was him. We saw him on the intercom screen. We weren't joking. We were genuinely scared and didn't dare open the door. Then they warned me, 'If Yuan comes to you, no matter what, don't open the door, because it feels like he might try to pull us into his world.' After they left my room, I sank into memories of my boyfriend and began to cry alone. That night, someone suddenly knocked on my door. My heart leapt. It must be him. Gathering all my strength, I ignored the knocks. Still, my boyfriend kept pounding on the door, calling out, 'It's me. Please open up.' I hid in a corner of the room, fingers pressed tightly over my ears. But the memories and yearning were too powerful to resist. Eventually, I moved toward the door. Outside, he called again. 'Open the door. It's me.' The knocking grew louder and more urgent. Peeking through the peephole, I saw him. It really was my boyfriend. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Unconsciously, I was about to unlock the door. But then, I remembered he was already dead. I screamed, "You're dead." After I shouted, the pounding became even more violent. Fearing for my own peace and his, I made a desperate decision. I opened the door. I looked him in the eye and shouted, "Yuan, you're dead." Then his face pressed close, cold and cruel. "The ones who should be dead are you all." I was so terrified that I blacked out. When I came to, I was in a treatment room, lying on a bed, and in front of me was my boyfriend, who should have been dead. His face was close, tears gleaming as he smiled happily. I couldn't understand what was happening. He spoke softly. "During our race that day, I got home first. I waited downstairs for a long time, but you never came back. So I decided to go check on your situation. On the way, I saw your wrecked bikes, Kitoda and the others in the front seat dead on the spot. You were injured, but after being rushed to the hospital, you fell into a coma." Hearing this, I first accepted Kitoda and the others' deaths. But soon, I felt an overwhelming fear. I clung tightly to my boyfriend, because Kitoda and the others who died in the crash had somehow entered my mind, trying to trap me in their world, to keep me from waking up. If I had kept ignoring my boyfriend's calls that night, I might never have woken up. Now, I work at a bank, in a middle management role, but before graduating high school, I lived in a place best described as a typical countryside town. After high school, nearly everyone left for the city. Some families even moved away together. This was nothing unusual around there. So at that time, my hometown was almost completely. Windows suddenly slammed shut on their own, the loud bangs echoing through the empty room like pounding fists. Chill swept over me, making my skin crawl. But I told myself, it was just the wind or my imagination. Still, I hesitated, glancing around the unlit house. Just as I was about to step out, a faint rustling sound came from the back room. I froze. Then, a low voice, old and trembling, called my name. "Are you there?" I whispered, heart thudding. No reply, just silence falling heavier than before. Trying to shake my fear, I edged forward and peeked inside that back room. The dim light caught on something lying motionless on the floor. Curious and uneasy, I took a step closer and saw nothing but scattered farming tools and a threadbare blanket. I blinked, the tension leaching slowly from my body. Maybe I'd misheard. Just as I turned to leave, I noticed a small photo frame on the windowsill. It was cracked and coated in dust, but behind the glass was the faded image of a woman with kind eyes. Suddenly, the feeling of being watched hit me full force. I swallowed hard, realizing some stories from long ago never truly end. Certain places, people, and memories cling like shadows, waiting, watching, lingering. From that day on, I never again walked up to that old house alone. And when I told the village elders what had happened, their faces tightened with something like sorrow and warning. Because, as I came to learn, there are corners of this world where past and present bleed together, a hidden quiet horror beneath the peaceful surface of rural life. Places where even time seems afraid to tread. The abandoned toilet, the secret base, the cursed path, they were not just fragments of childhood terror. They were reminders that even in the most ordinary settings, the past still hungers to be remembered. That spring, after my friend's sudden death and my own strange encounters, the village felt smaller, each shadow heavier, each silence deeper. I never forgot the old priest's words: the grudges of the past can reach out, cross the veil, and touch the living. Maybe that's why, even now, hearing footsteps behind me on a quiet street or catching a glimpse of a face in the corner of my eye still sends a shiver down my spine. Because in this town, where trains pass quietly through the night and the wind whispers through empty fields, some things never truly leave. They wait, they watch, they return. A faint voice drifted from deep inside. When I heard it, I called out an apology for intruding and let myself into her house. I called for Grand Matamius Young, but no one answered. I thought it was strange, just as I was about to leave. "Though, not part of yourselves," I heard that faint voice again. I figured it must be Grand Matamius Young. I kept calling her name as I walked deeper into the house, but still no one responded. The voice kept coming from the depths of the house, from that room I'd never been inside before. I gathered my courage and headed toward that room I'd never entered. When I got there and slid open the door, I discovered there was another door behind it. This one was covered in talismans. That faint voice was coming from inside, but I couldn't make out what it was saying. Young as I was, seeing all those paper charms made me feel a little afraid. But then, I thought maybe Grand Matamius Young wasn't feeling well and was resting inside. So I worked up my courage and opened that door. When I did, Grand Matamius Young wasn't there. The room was almost completely empty. All I saw was a large Buddhist altar, or maybe it was a household shrine. A gentle, delicate voice came from inside the altar. It sounded like the murmuring of words. Since I couldn't hear what it was saying, I wanted to get closer to the altar. But the instant I was about to step into the room, a powerful wave of fear washed over me, as if warning me of danger. I stopped in my tracks for a moment, but then it was like some force was drawing me in. Step by step, I kept walking toward the altar. When I reached it, I heard that faint voice again. It said, "Child, can you open this for me?" Even though my instincts screamed that I absolutely must not open it, my body moved beyond my control. My hand reached out to touch the altar door. The instant I opened it, I squeezed my eyes shut. When I finally worked up the courage to open them again, I saw a bundle of hair inside. Just then, Grand Mateus Young's voice called from the entryway. Is that you? Hearing her call out, I hurriedly closed the altar door and tried to leave the room as fast as I could. But Grand Mateus Young had already reached the doorway. She came toward me, her face full of terror. She asked me sternly, Hatch, what are you doing in here? I heard a voice. I thought it was you, Grandma. Grand Mateus Young asked urgently. Did you open it? Did you open that door? At the time, I was afraid she'd scold me, so I lied. No, I didn't open it. When Grand Mateus Young heard that, she dropped to her knees and started crying. She said with relief, Thank goodness, as long as you didn't open it. After that, she led me out of the room. Once she'd closed both doors, she said, We're going to the temple now. Grandma will let your parents know, don't worry. Even though I didn't know what was happening, I followed her to the temple. When we reached the temple entrance, a kind-looking monk was already waiting for us. He looked to be in his 40s. Very gentle. The monk said, This way, please. I walked into the temple. The monk asked me quietly, I've heard the situation. You only went into that room, you didn't open the altar door, did you? I didn't know how to answer. So Grand Mateus Young asked again. You didn't open it, right? I still didn't understand what was going on, but I knew things had gotten serious. I might get scolded. So I lied again. I looked down and answered quietly, No. When the monk heard that, he said, That's good. I'll perform a sutra recitation to handle this. Then I underwent something like an exorcism ritual at the temple. When I left, the monk gave me an amulet with a charm inside. I took the amulet and walked out of the temple. My parents were already waiting for me at the gate. When Grand Mateus Young seemed about to apologize to them, my father cut her off. Don't come near our child again. Grand Mateus Young hung head, looking heartbroken. In the car on the way home, I tried to explain to my parents that it wasn't Grandpa's fault I'd gone in on my own. But all they said was, Either way, from now on, don't go to that house anymore. Exhausted that night, I went to bed early. I placed the amulet next to my pillow. I don't know how much time passed, but when I woke up, I noticed something. The amulet had been torn to shreds. Not only that, it looked like it had been burned, turned charred and black. That's when I sensed something was wrong. The silence around me was terrifying. Not even the sound of insects. Suddenly, I felt something outside the window. As I turned my head to look, I saw a woman standing there. The moment I caught sight of her, I quickly looked away, but that figure, she burned into my memory. Her hair was a wild mess, tangled and unkempt. Her skin was an unnatural, vivid red, like a raw wound. Her eyes, they were black holes, bottomless and empty, and at the corners of her mouth, a dreadful smile stretched wide, cracked and unsettling. I was so frightened I dived back under my blankets, trembling uncontrollably. That's when it hit me. I couldn't even hear the slightest sound of my movements against the covers. It was that the world outside had gone silent, but that my ears had stopped working altogether. The next day, my parents took me to see a doctor. The diagnosis was unclear. There was no problem with my ears. Everything was structurally normal. My parents quietly suspected it was connected to the things that had happened at Granny Taeong's house. But gripped by fear, they chose to stay away, not to get involved. Not long after, it was said that Granny Taeyang set fire to her own home and died trapped inside with the blaze. The house and she herself vanished together in the flames. Years passed. One day, I went to a temple to find a monk and tell him what had happened, because I still couldn't hear. We communicated by writing messages back and forth. I asked him, What was that thing? He wrote back, this it's called the foolish adult. The woman is a cursed sacrifice. Granny Taeong's family had been sworn to guard her for generations and never reveal her existence to outsiders. Since Granny Taeyang was estranged from her family, she took that responsibility upon herself. In the end, she broke the rules by coming into contact with you and drowned herself in guilt. Because you opened the door to the Buddhist altar, that woman was set free. She's very likely to harm others again. I cannot banish her. That charm you received that night may have saved your life. The fact that you lost your hearing and have that talisman shows just how dangerous that thing is. The monk advised that it was best for me to forget everything to move on. But no matter what, I can't forget the terrifying smile of that woman, with her skin so unnaturally red. After all these years, I still feel like I won't